now that we finished Toot the train, we're going to read Little Toot, the tugboat. And if you look at the flag, he's got a T on the flag for letter T week. It's by Hardy Gramatke. My son loved this book. I read it to him every day in the bath, and he played with his tugboat. So, Little Toot. At the foot of an old wharf lived the cutest, silliest little tugboat you ever saw. His name is Little Toot because, blow hard as he would, the only sound from his whistle was a small toot, toot, toot. So he's small, just like Toot the train, right? But what he couldn't create in sound, Little Toot made up for in smoke. From his chubby smokestack, he'd send up a volley of smoke balls. That made Little Toot feel very important. And the flag, with the T on it, would dance like the tail of a puppy dog. And there's the smoke balls. Now, the river where Little Toot lives is full of ships. They come from ports all over the world. So, there's always work for tugboats to do, either pushing ships into the docks to be unloaded or pulling them to the ocean to begin a new voyage. You see the bigger boats and Little Toot. Little Toot was right in the middle of it all. His father, Big Toot, is the biggest and fastest tugboat on the river. And as for Grandfather Toot, he is an old sea dog who tells of his mighty deeds in the river. There's Daddy Toot. And there's Grandpa Toot. But Little Toot hated work. He was scared of the wild seas outside the channel. He had no desire to be tossed around or pull ships 50 times bigger than himself. He preferred the calm water of the river where he could always find plenty of fun, like gliding, for example, or playing thread the needle around the pier, or cutting figure eights. Little Toot's antics annoyed the hard-working tugboats awfully. One day, he made a figure eight so big it took up the whole river. There was no room at all for the big tug named J.G. McGillicuddy, who was bound downstream. He had little love for other tugboats, and a frivolous one like Little Toot made him mad. The other tugboats saw what happened, and they made fun of him, saying that he only knew how to play. Poor Little Toot. He was ashamed and angry, but there was nothing he could do about it except blow those silly smoke balls. See, the older boats are angry that he can't do as much work. Little Toot hid alongside the wharf and sulked. Then he saw a great ocean liner headed down the river. Pulling it were 4 tugboats, with his own father, Big Toot, right up in front. There's the big ocean liner. And there's the tugboats. That's Daddy Toot. All of a sudden, a great idea burst over him. He wouldn't be a silly, frivolous little tugboat anymore. He would work like the rest of them. He would make Big Toot proud of him. Full of ambition, Little Toot started downstream. He sidled, hopefully up to one of the big ships. tooting for them to heave a tow line. But they thought he was still only a nuisance and would have nothing to do with him. They didn't want to work with little Toot because they thought he just wanted to play. This was too much for little Toot. Little Toot wasn't wanted anywhere or by anyone. He was so lonesome. Floating aimlessly downstream, he grew sadder and sadder. He didn't even notice the sky had grown dark and the wind was whipping up into a real storm. See, he looks sad. There's a storm. Suddenly, he heard a sound that was like no sound he had ever heard before. It was the ocean, and the noise came from the waves as they dashed and pounded against the rocks. But that wasn't all. Against the black sky climbed a brilliant flaming rocket. Wonder what that is. When little Toot looked hard, he saw, jammed between two rocks, an ocean liner. What a terrible thing to see. So this boat is stuck on the rocks. He's letting out maybe a signal. Little Toot went wild with excitement. He began puffing those silly balls of smoke out of his smokestack. And then a wonderful thought struck him. Why, those smoke balls could probably be seen way up the river, where his father and grandfather were. So he puffed a signal. SOS, SOS, SOS. Does anyone know what that means? It stands for Save Our Ship. Way up the river they saw it. Of course, they had no idea who was making the signals, but they knew it meant come quickly, so they all raced to the rescue. There they go to help the boat that's stuck. Just in time, too, because little Toot, still puffing out his SOS, was hard put to stay afloat. Oh, he was having trouble staying in the water. One wave spun him around. Another tossed him up high. Out of the corner of his eye, when he was hung on a wave, little Toot saw the fleet wasn't able to make headway against such fierce seas. The boats couldn't get there. Little Toot was scared green, but something had to be done. See, the boats can't get up the wave, and there's little Toot, scared green. The fleet was on the verge of giving up when suddenly, above the storm, they heard a familiar toot. It was little Toot, not wasting his strength, butting the waves as they had done, but bouncing from crest to crest like a rubber ball. The pounding hurt like everything, but little Toot kept right on going. Didn't give up. Looking through his binoculars, Big Toot saw the great vessel throw a line to little Toot. When the line was made fast, little Toot waited for a long moment. So little Toot is going to tow the ship that's stuck. And when a huge wave swept under the liner, lifting it clear of the rocks, little Toot pulled with all his might. The liner came free. The people on board began to cheer, and the whole tugboat fleet insisted on little Toot's escorting the great boat back into the harbor. Little Toot was a hero, and Grandfather Toot blasted the news all over the river. Yay! Just like Toot the train became a hero, right? Well, after that, little Toot became quite a different fellow. He even changed his tune. And it is said that he can haul as big a load as his father can. That is, when Big Toot hasn't a very big load to haul. The end. So now he works just as hard as Dad. He's very proud. They're proud of each other. And I want you to think about everything the same, everything different in the two stories. And we'll talk about it when I see you. Have fun.